Welcome to the Business TV show, and today we have James Constantino. Now you know him from Channel 4's Posh Porn. He's going to be talking today about making money from money. Listen, if you don't know what I'm talking about, stay tuned.
How you doing? Nice to meet you. This is Prestige Pawnbrokers in the heart of Hatton Garden.
Fantastic.
This is a Tin Man.
This is a good start.
This is one of the first things we ever bought, actually. It sort of arrived within the first few months of being here.
That's amazing. Is this for sale, or is it just is there for a statement piece?
Well, this is a statement piece, but it is for sale as well, to be honest with you. It's on our online store. It was brought in by a customer.
Fantastic.
It's tailor-made for him, actually.
Of course, I can see that.
It was featured on the on one of the programs, so it's an amazing piece. It's a one-off.
Amazing. Little fantastic statement piece. Now, James, listen, you're going to take us to the heart of the operation, where the magic happens.
Definitely.
Right?
Come
Let's
through.
do it. Let's go.
How you doing?
James, how you doing? You right?
Good.
Fantastic.
Very good.
Listen, thank you for having us here at your office. So listen, I'm going to go all the way back to the start, right?
Yes.
Now, where did you come up with inspiration to get into business?
Well, I mean, I've always been, business orientated and a little bit of an entrepreneur, even when I was a kid. When it comes to sort of dealing with, I left school quite young actually. I was sort of 15. I was out in the big wide world and had to make my own way. And I've been fairly sort of self-reliant ever since. I've never really held down a job for more than a week or two. So I mean, it's just a matter of needing to look after myself, and I think it's sort of inbred in me, and it has been installed in me from a very young age. But the business concept really come around in '09. But prior to that, I was doing lots of other things. I had an import company, used to import goods from India. I used to deal in classic cars, buying and selling clothing. I did quite a lot of stuff actually, leading up to the pawnbroking thing. But I mean, I was involved in property, so I started building up a property portfolio.
So around what time, what age were you when you went into the property market?
I was probably in my 30s.
Okay.
So I was about 31, 32, and it was really a good time to get involved with that side of it. And I think the lending side was completely, it was a totally different ball game from what it is now. It was really a matter of going there for a couple of hours, ticking a few boxes, and then usually the next day you knew whether you had a mortgage or not. So totally different thing. But it was quite easy to build up a portfolio in those times, and I did that sort of with relative ease, and it was good for me. And then that sort of led to the new build side of it. So I was sort of interested in, I sort of got satisfaction out of them coming out of the ground, if you like. So I got involved with that, and in 2008 when that all crashed, I was sort of
the big recession, of course,
the big recession of '08. That was the property market really. That was just no longer really. The banks are pulling the rugs from everyone. It was a little bit edgy, so you couldn't really invest in that market, for a period of time anyway, for a good couple of years. And that's when 2009 I was looking for something else to get my teeth into, and come up with the concept of this high-end lending. Really.
Now, where were you? Because obviously, in 2008, anybody who was an entrepreneur, anyone in business knows that time. A lot of people made money from that era, and there's a lot of people that looked at that as it was an exit strategy. They just closed their businesses. What gave you that sense of keep on going on? What made you say, "Oh, listen, do you know what? I'm going to start something else"?
Well, I mean, when the markets are stable, it's quite difficult to make money. I mean, people make money in downturns and upturns. So I think that was a downturn, and I just saw really a sort of niche market there. There wasn't anyone else in the country doing high-end asset lending. And that's really why it all came about. I was sitting around one day, I was looking through the local paper. I mean, the Americans are more switched onto it than we are.
Yeah.
And it was really an article, I think it was in the Times. I was sitting in Cafe Russe, sipping a vanilla latte at the time.
As you do.
And it was on a Sunday afternoon, and I saw an article about the Americans, how they're lending They were lending at the time against art portfolios. And that's sort of really how it came about. A lot of my friends, were playing golf with their bank manager on a Sunday, but in 2008 they'd be playing golf, and then they'd phone up Monday for their usual, can you put a few quid in my account? And they were sort of getting a blank, whereas before they would have had it done within half an hour. So they were all driving around in flash cars, big houses, but there wasn't any money anymore. It dried up, and the banks pulled the rugs from under a few people's feet, and some good people as well.
Yeah. So it kind of built this idea in you that, listen, if my friends are going through this, there'll be loads of other multimillionaires out there, asset rich, but cash poor.
Exactly. That's how it came about, really. I mean, it was just the pawnbroking thing was a vehicle to lend these people money securely. Amazing. Because it was all licensed. You had the paperwork there, the agreements were all drawn up in the industry, and it was just a matter of really becoming a member and trying out what I thought we could do in that sector, and really that's how it evolved.
So you've got the idea, and where was the first shop? What was the first base that you went for?
Well, the first one we opened was in Weybridge in Surrey, and that's where I'm from. That's where I live.
Which is a fantastic area.
Well, it's a great area for that business. So that was quite fortunate, because we had all the assets there. There were people with the cars, the art, the wine, the jewellery, and it was a punt, at the end of the day. I mean, I thought it was a good concept, but until you open your door, you don't really know how it's going to go.
Yeah.
And we opened in 2009, and we sat there, to be quite honest with you, for months without really much action.
Right.
We got the press involved and telling them on what we were doing, but it took a bit of time to get traction into the marketplace. We jumped up and down when some fella walked in, and it turns out he wanted a hairdresser's next door. So yeah, it wasn't going too well for the first few months.
So is there any time whilst what you were going through those months where you kind of thought, is this the wrong idea? Is this did I make a mistake here or not?
100%. Yeah. 100%. When you're sitting there and you're seeing sort of one person every sort of 2 weeks coming through the door. And you're looking at the bills are mounting up. You're thinking, was this worth it? But I think once the word got out there about what we were doing, I think people couldn't get their heads around the concept. So it was really a matter of advertising, putting the word out there, getting the press working with us, because it was important. If someone came in and borrowed against a piece of art or a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, we needed to talk to people about it, let them know what we were doing, what the public were looking for in terms of lending. And once that got out there and people were sitting there reading the paper thinking, oh, well, this guy's in Weybridge, we've got one of those in the garage, or there's a painting hanging up on the wall we could do with 10 or 20 grand now. Once that got out there, I think it started to get a bit of momentum.
Amazing. So for people that don't, I'm sure a lot of people know what cash rich and asset, a cash poor and asset rich is. For people that might want a little bit clear definition, what is someone who's asset rich and cash poor?
Well, I mean, for me, it's basically someone who's built up assets in good times, and maybe they're going through a dry period, and they may have a wine collection, an art collection. It could even be just one piece. It might even be a ring or a watch or anything of value, and usually these items, I mean, there's a lot of old money out there, and some of these items and collections have been built up over a period of time, but I don't want to give the impression that you can only come into one of our stores if you've got a huge collection of items. If you've got a watch, it might even be 300 400 quid. Come in and see us if you need some money, because it's not all about that end of the market. It's just that's where we pitch we've got our stall set up.
Amazing. Now let's talk about PR and publicity. You mentioned advertising, PR, and publicity, and where and how did the opportunity for Channel 4's Posh Pawn come about? Were you seeking a TV opportunity, or it just came to you?
Well, no. I mean, what we were doing, we were working with the press, because the press were quite interested. I mean, take the bags that we do, for example. We were one of the first in the UK to sort of spot that market, because there wasn't really a market for it until then. So You Magazine, I think, did an article on us, and then the BBC World News came down, they did a feature, the One Show did a feature, and really I think we'd had quite a lot of press, and Channel 4 were looking to make a TV show about alternative lending, and they were looking around, I think they were looking around at all sorts of different businesses, and then they came across us, basically, they contacted the National Pawnbrokers Association and said, do you know anyone who does sort of unusual lending in your sector? And they said, well, you should go and see James down in Weybridge because he's, he does some unusual stuff. So they phoned us up, and they came down. They sat there. They said, look. At first I said no, and then they said, well, look, please let us down, just to sit there and we won't film anything. We just want to listen to what you talk about. So I thought, what the hell? Why would they want to come down and listen to what we talk about? I didn't really think about it too much. So guy come down, lovely guy called Bill Burrows. He came down and he was a journalist. He came down and he sat there with us. And I could hear him on the phone to some Channel 4 people and Boomerang, the production people, telling them that he thought he'd got the jackpot. So I think he was listening to me and Joe argue, my PA at the time. We were having an argument about what shoes she had on. I think it's sort of come from there, really. It all developed from there. So then they convinced us to do a 1 hour pilot. So they said, we'll just do a little pilot, we'll put it together, and if you like it, then maybe you'll think about letting us air it. So they put this pilot together. And to be honest with you, we thought it was absolutely fantastic.
Amazing. Yeah, so entrepreneurs now are looking onto television to increase the profile and actually really promote entrepreneurship, and it's causing a lot of young people to want to go into entrepreneurs. You have The Apprentice with Sir Alan Sugar, you have Peter Jones, Dragon's Den. There's so many entrepreneurs now on TV. Richard Branson. Did you see a peak in terms of loads of sales and loads of business? And for you personally as an entrepreneur, did you see your profile become enhanced by being on the show?
Well, 100%. I mean, to be quite honest with you, you couldn't pay for that sort of advertising. It wouldn't be viable for a start. But I mean, if you had 20 or 30 million quid, you couldn't pay for that exposure. And for me personally, because the show, I mean, it was all positive. I mean, there wasn't any negatives really out there. I mean, it was an insight into the pawnbroking world. It showed it in a fair light, I think. And to be honest with you, once that first series, once the first programme got aired, the phones rang off the wall. The business was never the same since.
Amazing.
So I could not pay for that sort of exposure. And if anyone can do any PR with any media at all, whether it's online, the papers or whatever you can do, I'd strongly recommend it.
Definitely. Now, the pawnbroker, the industry itself has been very private. And when you came on board, you kind of like said, "Listen, it's like Netflix and Blockbuster." You were, "Listen, I've got a new way of doing things, which is exciting and creative." Did you feel a bit of resistance when you started?
I mean, when I first came on board, a lot of these pawnbrokers have been around for hundreds of years. They're old guard, they're old family-run businesses. So I don't think really they wanted some fella turning up, saying he was going to lend against art Ferraris. Probably thought I was a little bit flash. So, I think the rumour was I wasn't going to be around for too long. Wow. They didn't really appreciate the cameras. They didn't like it. The rumours I was hearing on the grapevine, but I think the ones there were a few of them that could recognise the benefits of the filming, because it really put the pawnbroking business and that sector on the map in terms of another way of borrowing money. And the feedback I get now from everyone is that programme has enhanced all of their businesses to a massive degree, because people now, if they want to borrow a little bit of money, they've seen the show, they know how pawnbroking, how it works, and I think people are more comfortable with using their local pawnbroker. So not only has it enhanced my business, but I think it's enhanced the businesses of the other members of the pawnbroking sector.
Fantastic, brilliant. So what takes place here? This is the reception.
Well, this is where we meet and greet everyone, and obviously we bring clients through if it's, we're dealing with some high numbers, but this is basically where it all starts, to be honest with you. We've got the team here, well, some of them here. We've got gemologists, the store manager, special handbag and leather goods expert. So
now you mentioned gemologist. What does the gemologist do? What's essentially her job? How are you? By the way? How you doing?
This is Alex. What is your job, Alex?
Many things.
She is many things. She's many good things. I just want to make that clear. Many
Fantastic. Well, nice to meet you. So this is essentially the operation course. This is where everything happens. Yeah.
This is where it all happens.
Fantastic.
And, as you can see, our store. This is our manager, Helen. Say hello to.
Hi Helen, how are you? How you doing,
meet
Helen?
you.
How you
Hi.
doing?
Yeah.
You're the one that manages the whole store.
Yes,
That
that's
could
right.
be a kind of quite daunting task to do. Like that's because you deal with loads of customers as well.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean we're quite a busy shop here, so lots of like good things that come in. So
Fantastic.
working on
Oh wow.
sculpture.
It's
at the
another
moment.
rare gem.
But
Wow.
it can be like diamonds or watches
Wow,
or
wow.
anything can come in. So
Amazing,
yeah.
amazing. So it's exciting.
Yeah,
exciting.
really exciting.
Fantastic.
She doesn't get phased much, by the way.
You don't get
Just on
faced
that-
by anything. So when we
Made
show
that
you a
clear.
massive diamond, means nothing to you.
It means a lot to me.
I see what
It's
you
nice
mean.
to own it. But, yeah.
Well, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Fantastic.
So this is our stock department. This is Maria, who runs all the
how are
stock.
You, Maria? So Maria, you deal with all the stock. You
Yes,
make sure.
as
Yeah.
you can see, I'm surrounding my stock.
I see. You are. This is so it's all kind of different. What's the strangest stock you say? What's the strangest product you've seen so far? Like your jewelry or
Lately, we had the world biggest pearl,
wow,
and we had the big opal as
the
well.
big oak. That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
so it's very exciting, and you don't know
Very
what's going to
exciting.
come through the
Yeah,
door.
that's the interesting part. to be honest.
Fantastic. That's interesting. It's amazing. It's amazing.
We'll come through, and this is where this is my little den.
Oh, this is where the big decisions are made. Then.
Got a cup of tea waiting for me, as you can see.
I like to see that. I like to see it. It's fantastic. Now, we were talking about this earlier on. There's a lot of misconception into what pawnbroking is all about, what pawnbrokers do. Some people thought, like we were talking about, the common misconception was you give your helicopter and he's just put in the market straight away and he's sold. But it's not that, is it?
Well, no, I mean, we're regulated by the FCA, so there's
Yeah.
very strict guidelines. And I think, harking back to the old days, maybe they did act a little bit unscrupulously, but we've got strict guidelines, and it's not, I don't want to be a shopkeeper, so I don't want to sell people's items. I'd much rather give the items back and then you retain the client so they can come back to you again and again. And we've got people that have been with us almost since day one for 9 years, 10 years now. So since we started. So it's important to keep those clients. And if you sell someone's goods, then you've lost the client.
Yeah.
The contracts are for 7 months. We often contact the client saying, "Listen, is there any way we can work something out here?" Because, as I said, the last thing we want to do is sell goods.
So for people who are trying to get their heads around pawnbroking, so you lend money. So is it exactly like the bank? Is a profit made from the interest that's levied on the finance?
Exactly, that's exactly how it's made. I mean, we lend up to 75% of an item's second-hand value, and we retain that item for the duration of the loan, which is normally 7 months. At the end of that term, or any time during that term, the client can come back, repay the capital borrowed and the interest due at that time. It's almost like pay as you go. So, if he has it for 3 months, he pay back the capital and 3 months interest to get the items back. It's very simple.
Okay, and risk. It seems like there's a lot of risk involved in that industry. You have to be someone who's not scared to take risks to get in an industry like that. Is that something that you would say is part of your DNA?
Well, look, your desire for gain has definitely got to be greater than your fear of loss.
That's
Otherwise,
it,
you're
yeah.
not going to succeed. And I think that goes for almost any business person. If they're going to start a business up without that viewpoint, then there's no point. You might as well put the close sign up already before you start, because I think, if it was that easy, everyone would be doing it. So you've got to be prepared to take a little bit of risk. And there is a bit of risk in this business, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of items almost on a daily basis. So, but I like to think of it as a calculated risk. And yeah, you're going to get one or two that might not pan out the way you thought it was at the beginning of the deal. But I think as long as your upturns are greater than your downturns, then you're going in the right direction.
So obviously, there's a lot of people that have a funny relationship with money. Some people, make millions of pounds and they literally scared of losing it. Some others are scared of, literally talking about money in general. For someone in the money industry, what advice would you give for people to have a better relationship in terms of money, in terms of saving, in terms of spending, in terms of, really creating wealth for themselves?
Well, I think, look, if you're in business, you've got to put your money to work, and you've got to respect it. I mean, there's a lot of people out there, these sort of, I see it all the time, they're living on the edge, so they're sort of spending more than they're earning. I think if you're either good with money or you're not good with money, as far as I'm concerned. All the people I know that have done well have always done well with money, you know, from the early days. So when we left school, you know, I've got friends and family that have been around money practically all their lives, and but it's quite a difficult thing to sort of teach someone, I think. I mean, there's no sort of money school you can go to.
True, which is funny that it's not, you know.
Well, it is a little bit odd. I mean, I do think maybe the schooling could help out a little bit more, you know, in that respect, because there's nothing really at school that, well, back in my day anyway, I'm not sure about now, that prepares you for the big wide world and the business side of things. There's nothing out there that talks about or gives you those skills. So once you leave school or college, you go out there, and then it's a very rude awakening, unfortunately.
Right. So James, expansion is the next for you. Now you've already expanded into different areas. Tell us the new places where you're opening Prestige Pawnbrokers.
Well, I mean, we're looking at 2019 is going to be a really good year for us. So we're looking to open more stores. We're going up to Scotland. We may even be going over to Ireland and just various locations in the UK, because it's all about the locations. We find that obviously with these high-end assets, you need to be in the right key areas, and that's really important to get in that part of the business right, because if you're not in an area where these assets can be brought into one of your stores, then quite frankly it's not going to work.
Definitely. Now let's talk about the work-life balance. So we interviewed loads of entrepreneurs, and you are a busy entrepreneur, running all these businesses, the shops and everything else on your property portfolio. Where do you find time to relax, and also where do you find time to kind of spend with the family? How do you kind of balance it all?
Yeah, I mean, that is difficult, because obviously if you've got a growing business, and for me it was rapidly growing, especially in the early days, you can get carried away with it, and it can rule your life. So it's really important to take time out. And you know, middle of last year, I sat down with myself and I said, I've got to take some time out. I've got to make time for myself. And I tried to sort of get away at least 4 or 5 times a year. And it doesn't have to be on luxury holidays. It's not really like that. It can be a short city break or a bank holiday. I just make sure that a few times a year that I'm chilled, you know, and that's really important to me.
Right, James, we're going to play a game called Top 5, right? It's for people to know the personality behind the business. All right, so let's talk about number 1, your top 5 best TV shows of all time.
I don't know if anyone remembers it. It's probably something that they don't really remember, but there was a programme called Catweasel.
All right.
Okay. It was about a wizard who lived in the forest, and he was a magician, a wizard, and he was just an amazing character. That always sticks in my mind, so that's one.
Yeah.
I don't know, I recently had, well not recently, a few years ago I had some kids, and has anyone seen Peppa Pig?
Yeah.
I love Peppa Pig.
The favourite, the kid's favourite.
I love the moral stories behind Peppa Pig. Dragon's Den,
obviously,
Alan Sugar, and The Apprentice is another favourite of mine, but the Hunted. So
you mentioned travelling as something you do for your downtime. Let's talk about your top 5 best travel locations to go to.
I've been to Rome, an amazing city. I actually go there quite a lot. So if you want to chill out and do a bit of shopping and have some wonderful food, get yourself to Rome. Venice as well is another favourite of mine. Morocco, funny enough. I don't know if anyone.
Been to Casablanca. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, been to Casablanca. Been to Marrakesh.
I haven't yet. I want to go. Yeah. But, you know, obviously running a business, challenges that people face in running a business. So top 5 for you, challenges that you've learned how to deal with these challenges.
If it's in a sector that you don't understand, and obviously you're not going to understand everything you go into. If you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be testing and treading new waters. So the setup and understanding that business and research is a challenge. I think growth strategically will be number 2, because if you're going to grow it and you're opening more stores, that's always a challenge. As I said before, finding your seed capital might be a challenge to you if you want to involve other people, partnerships. Money for growth would be an issue, and the looking for ways to exit might be a challenge for some people, because that can be a challenge as well.
What would you say is the top 5 things that you should do to become a successful entrepreneur?
For me, I was quite fortunate because I had a good idea at the right time. So those two things are really important. Capital, initial seed capital, is going to be another a key point, because obviously there's no point in coming up with a concept if you can't grow it. I think point 4 would be expanding capital, because you may have the seed capital, but if you can't grow it, then there's going to be an issue. And then look towards maybe how are you going to exit the business, if that's something that you might be thinking about. I think it's important for most entrepreneurs, because they usually come up with, when people come up with a concept, they don't think about the exit strategy. And I think that's one. Is it expandable? Can you grow it? Can you franchise it? And what is the end game? Are you going to float it? Are you going to sell out? And how's that going to pan out for you?
Now, James, 2019 will be a good year for you, but looking towards the future, how would you like to be known?
I'd like to be known as James Constantino, the man that helped transform and bring pawnbroking into the 21st century. That's how I'd like to be known.